Live streaming is on.
Oh man, hey, what's going on, everybody? This is David Brooks, the Cadillac Counselor, coming at you to tell you a little piece of my mind and kind of talk to you just about just life in general. But I want to start this off by talking about Michael K. Williams. You know, it shocked me when he first died. You know, um, when he first died because I was a really big fan of Boardwalk Empires. I mean, The Wire. I mean, there were many different movies that he would play in that really connected with me. But the thing about this is that it just came out that he died, and it had the toxicology report, and he died of fentanyl, um, other opiates, and cocaine. And for me, I mean, when you die of fentanyl with the little cocaine, I mean, it's not like it was an accident. It, like it just kind of just happened in his life. You know what I mean? But the thing about this was that when you start to look at people that are celebrities where they are buying fentanyl and they're abusing fentanyl and they're abusing cocaine, like this is the signs of a true drug addict. It's like he grew up in Brooklyn, and we all know the drug problem that are in the big cities, but um it's just a shame that no matter how famous he got, this addiction just doesn't discriminate. Like it doesn't discriminate on age, it doesn't discriminate on color, like skin. I mean, what society privileges you've had in your life. When you get hooked on fentanyl and you get hooked on other drugs of that fashion, I mean, it just gets bad really quickly, and everyone else may be stunned, but this is my thing. Somebody in his life knew that he was getting high. Like there's no way possible that you can get to that point of status and it just be like a one or two times. Man, there was times that I would look at some of his interviews, man, and you could see like his glassiness, almost like Tiger Woods. When Tiger Woods does his interviews, you can tell when he's high and when he's not. And so for me, we got to really look at opiates in back in another fashion. I mean, we've forgotten about the opiate addiction since the pandemic, but these people are dying so quickly that everybody just kind of moves on because there's so many other topics out there that are whether it's Afghanistan, whether it's the president, whatever it is going on, and it's about to ramp up again in the next couple of years, and so we look at opiates, and opiates really have caused a lot of problems in our society, and a lot of times people don't really talk about them because they used to be in the minority population. But you got to understand, like those drugs were all shipped to ports. You look at every city that has a real bad opiate problem. Most time it's in like New York, it's going to be in like Virginia, it's going to be like in New York, I mean New Jersey, I mean Baltimore. I mean, you go down the coastline and you can definitely see where the ports are. And if you notice that a lot of minorities always live near the ports, and because of that, the drug use and the opiate addiction just gets worse and worse. But a lot of people don't really talk about this as a problem. And for me, I'll tell you a story about I was talking to one of my neighbor business owners, and we were talking about just drug addiction just in general. And she was like, "Hey, I've always known about you and you've done really good work." And I was like, "All right," we talked. And she goes, "But I've heard about you from the past." And I was like, "Wow, how did that happen?" And she said, "Well, you used to have a client that went to you." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And she told me the name of the person. I go, "Oh man, his mother's going to love that boy to death." And she turned to me and she goes, "Exactly, that's what happened." And I was like, I didn't say it to be rude or to say it as if I meant for someone to die. But when we see people that are so codependent on each other, and especially on a drug addict, a lot of times the drug addict really doesn't know what they are doing, but the person who's normal or the person who's sober, they're supposed to know and be able to call these behaviors out. And whenever we see that do not, people that don't call them out because you love them, if you love them that much, I mean, you're willing to be okay with them dying. And that's what I got a problem with. And like this young man that passed away, I mean, it was so codependent issues, and there was nothing that was going to break it. Like, I tried my best to try to tell the parent to separate, like just allow that person to fall so that they could fall and get themselves up. And when you see people like Michael K. Williams, and when he died, I mean, trust me, he probably had money, he probably had his own plate, but somebody gotta love them enough to be able to say, like, I will do whatever it takes to get you sober, because it doesn't matter what the community cares. I mean, all the fans and all that stuff. And it's not about the reports in the newspaper, because they're gonna light you up anyway. But why not try to live? And that's what I'm saying. In this recovery month, this month, the National Recovery Month, I just really want to see like a true effort to fight the opidemic. I believe it's the opidemic because it needs its own name. It's not just an epidemic. Like, this is an opidemic. We've had companies that we know have literally flooded the market with opioids, and they used to give out trips. They used to go and give luncheons and pay for lunches. Like doctors used to be able to go and just fill that many prescriptions that they'll get a trip somewhere. And it was a nice trip. It wasn't like it was just like this old random trip down the street. No, it was a real trip that they would be able to go to for giving out opiates. And then you look at like places in West Virginia who don't even have a big population in a city, but people are coming from Maryland or coming from Pennsylvania or coming from another state to fill orders of opiates. And when it gets to that point and the government then stepped in, then next thing you know, like, these companies are like, man, we can't pay all that money back. Like, they're not even trying to hear a lawsuit. And we have to say to ourselves, for real, what are we doing? Like, are we okay? Because it wasn't, it was glorified in The Wire. Like, people like glorified the fact that people was getting high, and they made episodes after episodes of just the epidemic of opioids, and it became entertaining. But then whenever it started to go outside of the hood and started to come outside of the urban community, and it landed in the rural community, that's whenever it became a problem. And when it became a problem, then we start seeing now fentanyl really coming in strong. And yes, there's a lot of, and I'll tell you, alcohol right now is on the highest that I've seen it in my 20 years of counseling. I've never seen alcohol this bad. And what happened when we went in for the big old isolation or the big quarantine? What then happened was people that normally didn't have an addiction issue, probably had an addiction, but they were able to go golfing, able to go do some things in their community, go to concerts, go to the movies to keep themselves occupied. But then it got to a point where people just didn't have anything to do, and they closed everything down but stores and liquor stores. And people were drinking, a beer was running off. We got to do something, people. And you might not think that it's a problem, but it's a major problem. And I just wanted to talk about it. But I hate that Michael K. Williams died of this. And there's a lot of other really good actors, really good comedians, really good just people that died to opioids. And whenever we see those pictures and they're lined up in the grass, all those people had stories, just like Michael K. Williams. He had a story, but the problem is that people start to forget that this is a opidemic in the middle of a pandemic. And after the pandemic's over, the opidemic is still going to be there. We gotta keep an eye on it and not forget that this is real. Man, it's David Brooks, the Cadillac Counselor, coming at you just to tell you a piece of my mind. All right, take it easy. All right, bye.